All right, Shalom Israel. Let's rise and face Jerusalem, brothers. Cover your heads, sisters. Cover your head. According to 1 Corinthians 11. Dear Heavenly Father, in the name of your Son Jesus Christ, we thank you for another day of grace and another day of mercy, Father. We pray for a renewed spirit and a right mind, Father. We pray that you would restore your joy and salvation, Father. We pray according to Psalms, the 51st chapter and the 11th and the 10th verse. It says, this is Psalm chapter 55 and verse 1. It says, give ear to my prayer, O God. Hide not thyself from my supplication. Attend unto me and hear me. I mourn in my complaint and make a noise because of the voice of the enemy, because of the oppression of the wicked. For they cast iniquity upon me, and in wrath they hate. My heart is sore pain within me, and the terrors of death are fallen upon me. Fearfulness and trembling will come upon me, and horror hath overwhelmed me. And I said, oh, that I had wings like a dove, for then would I fly away and be at rest. Lo, then would I wonderfully far off and remain in the wilderness of Selah. I would hasten my hate from the storm of tempest. Destroy, O Lord, and divide their tongues. For I have seen violence and strife in the city. Father, we pray for destruction and death to our enemies, Father. In the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, we thank you. We pray. Amen. All right, shalom. Shalom, family. Son, grace, bless. Shalom, sister Shamaria from the Bahamas. Excuse me. Everybody on here, I'm pretty sure y'all know who I am. Just in case you don't, Officer Lemuel, USC Dallas. Let me see if I can get Periscope up and running. So, see if I can wake it up. At least turn this thing to the side. Wait, why not do that? So we pretty much at the end, well, not pretty much, we are at the end of Kings. So we may end up finishing today. So we are in 2 Kings 23. This is in the reign, during the reign of King Josiah. And during his reign, he, started to tear down graven images and do renovations to the temple, to the king's palace, so on and so forth, the king's house. Shalom, soldier with fire, I believe. So let me go back. I know I always like to kind of go back and digress a bit, make sure we're all on the same page. 2 Kings chapter 23. Let's just start at verse 1. It says, and the king sent, let's start above that. Yeah, 2 Kings 22. Let's start at 2 Kings 22, verse 1. It says Josiah was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 31 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Jedida, the daughter of Adiah of Boscath. Verse 2, and he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, and walked in all the way of David his father, and turned not aside to the right hand or to the left. Let's jump down to verse 4. Go up to Hilkiah the high priest, that he may sum the silver which is brought into the house of the Lord, which the keepers of the door have gathered of the people, and let them deliver it into the hand of the doers of the work that have the oversight of the house of the Lord, and let them give it to the doers of the work which is in the house of the Lord to repair the breaches of the house. So during the time of King Josiah, they were renovating the house of the Lord in the king's house. They were doing renovations. So they hired carpenters and masons and hewers of stone and people to buy timber and so on and so forth. Verse 8, it says, and Hilkiah the high priest said unto Shaphan the scribe, I have found the book of the law in the house of the Lord. And Hilkiah gave them to Shaphan, and he read it. So they actually found it, but during the renovations, they found the Bible. So then it makes you think, okay, well, what have y'all been doing the last, couple of decades? What were y'all doing before? What were y'all reading on the Sabbath? If y'all are just now finding out that the Bible is in the temple. All right, jump down to verse 11. And it came to pass when the king had heard the words of the book of the law that he rent his clothes. Verse 12. And the king commanded Hilkiah the priest and Ahikam the son of Shaphan, Akbor the son of Micaiah, and Shaphan the scribe, and Asahiah a servant of the king's, saying, Go ye, inquire of the Lord for me, and for the people, and for all Judah, concerning the words of this book that is found. For great is the wrath of the Lord that is kindled against us, because our fathers have not hearkened unto the words of this book to do according unto all that which is written concerning us. Verse 16. Thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will bring evil upon this place and upon the inhabitants thereof, even all the words of the book which the king of Judah hath read. Verse 17, because they have forsaken me and have burnt incense unto other gods, that they may provoke me to anger with all the works of their hands, therefore my wrath shall be kindled against this place and shall not be quenched. So after this, that's when King Josiah starts to do a big cleanup, and he starts to set things in order. Let's jump over to chapter 23 in verse 1. Chapter 23, verse 1. And the king sent, 2 Kings 23, verse 1. And the king sent, and they gathered unto him all the elders of Judah and of Jerusalem. And the king went up into the house of the Lord, and all the men of Judah and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem with him, and the priests and the prophets and all the people, both small and great. And he read in their ears all the words of the book of the covenant, which was found in the house of the Lord. And the king stood by a pillar and made a covenant before the Lord to walk after the Lord and to keep his commandments and his testimonies and his statutes with all their heart and all their soul, to perform the words of this covenant that were written in this book. And all the people stood to the covenant. So also Josiah and the rest of the nation of Israel stood up and made a covenant with the Most High, that they were going to come back to him, that they were going to obey him, that they were going to keep the words that were written in the book. They were going to start to apply the commandments. Verse 5, and he put down the idolatrous priests whom the kings of Judah had ordained to burn incense in the high places in the cities of Judah and in the places round about Jerusalem. Them also that burned incense unto Baal, to the sun and to the moon and to the planets and to all the hosts of heaven. So as you read on, through the next couple, excuse me, through the next couple of verses, Josiah goes through and they start to clean up Jerusalem. They're tearing down altars. They put to death the high priest. Um, they started to, not all the high priests, those that were burning incense to Baal, those that were worshiping other gods, and had the people sacrificing to false gods. I don't say other gods. There's only one God, but to false gods. All right. So where we left off at, let's actually jump back up to verse 21. 2 Kings chapter 23, verse 1. It says, "And the king commanded all the people, saying, Keep the Passover unto the Lord your God, as it is written in the book of this covenant. Surely there was not holden such a Passover from the days of the judges that judged Israel, nor in all the days of the kings of Israel, nor of the kings of Judah." So it's not saying that they hadn't kept the Passover since the time of Judges, but it was the largest that they had kept. Why? Because they had went astray, and they had for so long that they had to. Josiah felt that we gotta serve the Lord 10 times more. Hold this, Baruch in the Apocrypha chapter 4. Let me get it. Yeah, this is Baruch chapter 4 and verse 28. This is the reason why it was the biggest since Judges. Baruch chapter 4 verse 28. Verse 28. "For as it was your mind to go astray from God, so being returned, seek him 10 times more." So the reason why it says, let's go back to Kings, 2 Kings 23:22. "Surely there was not holding such a Passover from the days of the judges that judged Israel, excuse me, nor in all the days of the kings of Israel, nor of the kings of Judah, because they were seeking the Lord 10 times more. And in them seeking the Lord 10 times more, they held the largest Passover that, that there had been since we came out of Egypt. All right, verse 23. "But in the 18th year of King Josiah, wherein this Passover was holden, but in the 18th year of King Josiah, wherein this Passover was holden, the Lord in Jerusalem." Verse 24. "Moreover, the workers with familiar spirits, and the wizards, and the images, and the idols, and all the abominations that were spied in the land of Judah and in Jerusalem, did Josiah, did Josiah put away, that he might perform the words of the law which were written in the book that Hilkiah the priest found in the house of the Lord. And like unto him was there no king before him that turned to the Lord with all his heart and with all his soul and with all his might, according to all the law of Moses. Neither after him arose there any like him." So I'm going to read that again. Verse 25. "And like unto him, King Josiah, there was no king before him that turned to the Lord with all his heart and with all his soul and with all his might, according to all the law of Moses. Neither after him arose there any like him." So you had famous men that were famous for coming back to the Lord and following the commandments. Because remember, there was a king prior, King Hezekiah was one. All right, brother that had 15 years added to his life because of the fact that he repented and he turned back to the Lord. Verse 26. "Notwithstanding, the Lord turned not from the fierceness of his great wrath, wherewith his anger was kindled against Judah, because of all the provocations," meaning the provoking, "that Manasseh had provoked him withal," meaning they pissed the Lord off. That's the provocation. It was pissing the Lord off. "And the Lord said, I will remove Judah also out of my sight, as I have removed Israel, meaning the northern king, and will cast off the city Jerusalem, which I have chosen, and the house of which I said, my name shall be there. Now the rest of the acts of Josiah and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the chronicles of the kings of Judah? In his days, Pharaoh Necho, king of Egypt, went up against the king of Assyria to the river Euphrates, and King Josiah went against him, and he slew him at Megiddo when he had seen him. And his servants carried him in a chariot dead from Megiddo, and brought him to Jerusalem and buried him in his own sepulchre. So Josiah ended up dying going up against uh, king of Assyria. Excuse me. Verse 30, and the bottom of verse 30. In his own sepulchre. And the people of the land took Jehoahaz, the son of Josiah, and anointed him and made him king in his father's stead. Jehoahaz was 23 years old when he began to reign. And he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah. And he that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his fathers had done. So just think about Israel. Think about Jerusalem. After Josiah dies, which is one of their most righteous kings, Lord said there was no king like him before or after him. They get Jehoahaz in his stead, his son, and his son is an idiot. His son is evil as hell and turns them right back to the same idolatry that they was doing before. They had just got done celebrating the biggest Passover that Israel has seen in generations, and then this dude comes in and turns them right back into the idolatry that they was doing before. It says, verse 33, and Pharaoh Necho put him in bands at Riblah in the land of Hamath, that he might not reign in Jerusalem, and put the land to a tribute, of 100 talents of silver and a talent of gold. So Pharaoh Necho starts to tax Jerusalem. Nah, I mean you have you have that, because look at Solomon's son. Solomon's son grew up in his stead, and the kingdom ended up being split up under his under his son generation. So there are times where wisdom, it's not passed down like that. Yeah. Verse 34. So Jerusalem starts to become taxed by the king of Egypt. Verse 34. And Pharaoh Necho made Eliakim, the son of Josiah, king in the room of Josiah's father, and turned his name to Jehoiakim, and took Jehoahaz away, and he came to Egypt and died there. So specifically with this name change, y'all see how it's not new that Israel, whenever we went under tribute or went into captivity under other nations, that our names would be changed. So just like today, we went from Israel to Johnson and Jenkins and Wilson and Smith. Our names has changed. It's the same thing that was happening in the days of old. Same thing. 3 Hebrew boys, Azariah, Hananiah, and Mishael, I believe was their names. And their names is changed to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Right? I think it's Queen Esther, whose name is Hasadiah, or make sure. Yeah, Hasadiah, I believe. So it's nothing new. Nothing new under the sun. Hadassah, yeah, Hadassah. Thank you.
verse 35. Verse 35. And Jehoiakim gave the silver and the gold to Pharaoh, but he taxed the land to give the money according to the commandment of Pharaoh. He exacted the silver and the gold of the people of the land, of everyone according to his taxation, to give it unto Pharaoh Necho. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Zebudah, the daughter of Pedaiah of Rumah. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his fathers had done. 2 Kings chapter 24, verse 1. 2 Kings chapter 24, verse 1. In his days, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up, and Jehoiakim became his servant 3 years. Then he turned and rebelled against him. The Lord sent against him bands of the Chaldees and bands of the Syrians and bands meaning armies, and bands of the children of Ammon, and sent them against Judah to destroy it, according to the word of the Lord, which he spake by his servants, the prophets. Surely at the commandment of the Lord came this upon Judah, to remove them out of his sight for the sins of Manasseh, according to all that he did. So hold this. Let's go back. Let's go back and read the prophecy. Prophecy, excuse me. Let me see. Let me find it real quick. All right, let's start at 2 Kings chapter 20 and verse 17. 2 Kings chapter 20 and verse 17. It says, Behold, the days come that all that is in thine house and that which thy fathers have laid up in store unto this day shall be carried into Babylon. Nothing shall be left, saith the Lord. My sons that shall issue from thee, which thou shalt beget, shall they take away, and they shall be eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon. So it didn't happen during the time of Hezekiah, but let's jump over to chapter 21 and verse 1. 2 Kings 21 and 1. Manasseh was 12 years old when he began to reign, and reigned 50 and 5 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Hephzibah. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, after the abominations of the heathen, whom the Lord cast out before the children of Israel. For he built up again the high places which Hezekiah his father had destroyed, and he reared up altars for Baal, and made a grove, as did Ahab king of Israel, and worshipped all the host of heaven, and served them. Let's jump over to verse 9. But verse 9, yeah. But they hearkened not, and Manasseh seduced them to do more evil than did the nations whom the Lord destroyed before the children of Israel. Let's jump down to verse 11. Look, verse 10. And the Lord spake by his servants the prophets, saying, Because Manasseh king of Judah hath done these abominations, and hath done wickedly above all that the Amorites did, which were before him, and hath made Judah also to sin with his idols. Therefore thus saith the Lord God of Israel, Behold, I am bringing such evil upon Jerusalem and Judah, that whosoever heareth of it, both his ears shall tingle. And I will stretch over Jerusalem the line of Samaria, and the plummet of the house of Ahab, meaning Judah was going to receive the same punishment as the northern king. And I will wipe Jerusalem as a man wipeth a dish, wiping it and turning it upside down, because Babylon was going to come in and make Jerusalem desolate. All right, so let's go back. So that's the prophecy. So when we read in 2 Kings 24 verse 2, the bottom of verse 2, it says, According to the words of the Lord which he spake by his servants, the prophets. That's what he was talking about. Chapter what we just read in chapter 21. It says verse 3, 24 verse 3. Surely at the commandment of the Lord came this upon Judah to remove them out of his sight for the sins of Manasseh, according to all that he did, and also for the innocent blood that he shed, for he filled Jerusalem with innocent blood, which the Lord would not pardon. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the king of Judah? So Jehoiakim slept with his fathers, and Jehoiakim his son reigned in his stead. And the king of Egypt came, for the king of Babylon had taken from the river of Egypt unto the river Euphrates all that pertained to the king of Egypt. Jehoiakim was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 months. And his mother's name was Nehushta, the daughter of Elnathan of Jerusalem. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his father had done. At that time, the servants of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up against Jerusalem, and the city was besieged. I'm going to read that part again. Verse 10. At that time, servants of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up against Jerusalem, and the city was besieged. Just like what we read in 2 Kings 20. And Jehoiakim, the king of Judah, went out to the king of Babylon, he and his mother and his servants and his princes and his officers, and the king of Babylon took him in the 8th year of his reign. And he carried out thence all the treasures of the house of the Lord and the treasures of the king's house, and cut in pieces all the vessels of gold, which Solomon king of Israel had made in the temple of the Lord, as the Lord had said. And he carried away all Jerusalem, and all the princes, and all the mighty men of valor, even 10,000 captives, and all the craftsmen and smiths. None remained, save the poorest sort of the people of the land. So the only people that were left in Jerusalem were the poorest of our people. So it's not the whole nation went into captivity under Babylon, but you did have the vast majority of our people that went into captivity under Babylon. Verse 15, and he carried away Jehoiakim to Babylon, and the king's mother, and the king's wives, and his officers, and the mighty of the land. Those carried he into captivity from Jerusalem to Babylon. And all the men of might, even 7,000, and craftsmen and smiths 1,000, all that were strong and apt for war, even them the king of Babylon brought captive to Babylon. And the king of Babylon made Mattaniah, his father's brother, king in his stead, and changed his name to Zedekiah. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he began to reign. And he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that Jehoiakim had done. For through the anger of the Lord it came to pass in Jerusalem and Judah, until he had cast them out from his presence, that Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon. Chapter 25, verse 1. And it came to pass in the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th month, in the 10th day of the month, that Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came, he and all his hosts, meaning his armies, against Jerusalem, and pitched against it, and they built forts against it round about. So they started to surround the city of Jerusalem. And the city was besieged until the 11th year of King Zedekiah. And on the 9th day of the 4th month, the famine prevailed in the city, and there was no bread for the people of the land. And the city was broken up, and all the men of war fled by night by the way of the gate between two walls, which is by the king's garden. Now the Chaldees were against the city round about, and the king went the way toward the plain. And the army of the Chaldees pursued after the king, and overtook him in the plains of Jericho, and all his army was scattered from him. So they took the king and brought him up to the king of Babylon to Riblah, and they gave judgment upon him. And they slew the sons of Zedekiah before his eyes, and put out the eyes of Zedekiah, meaning they plucked his eyes out, and bound him with fetters of brass, and carried him to Babylon. Because Babylon was fierce, man. Babylon, Assyria, and Babylon were fierce captivities. They were fierce captivities. It says, and carried in verse 8, and in the 5th month, on the 7th day of the month, which is the 19th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came Nebuchadnezzar, captain of the guard, a servant of the king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem. And he burnt the house of the Lord, and the king's house, and all the houses of Jerusalem, and every great man's house burnt he with fire. So imagine like you had the Oklahoma City bombings, when they had Black Wall Street, and you had them coming in and setting everything on fire, right? It's and burning down houses, burning down, businesses and stuff like that. Like that's what Babylon's doing. It says, verse 11, and all the army of the Chaldees that were with the captain of the guard break down the walls of Jerusalem round about. Now the rest of the people that were left in the city, and the fugitives that fell away to the king of Babylon with the remnant of the multitude, did Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, carry away. But the captain of guard left of the poor of the land to be vine dressers and husbandmen. So they left the poorest of the people in Jerusalem just to be slaves, just to grow food and stuff like that. It says, verse 13, and the pillars of brass that were in the house of the Lord, and the bases and the brazen sea that was in the house of the Lord, did the Chaldees break in pieces, and carried the brass of them to Babylon. And the pots and the shovels and the snuffers and the spoons and all the vessels of brass with they ministered took they away. So they took everything that the Levitical priests dealt with, anything that dealt with the temple, they took it away. And verse 15, and the fire pans and the bowls and such things that was of gold, in gold, and of silver, in silver, the captain of the guard took away. The 2 pillars, 1 sea, and the bases which Solomon had made for the house of the Lord. The brass of all these vessels was without weight, meaning all the stuff was heavy, but they didn't care. They took it away like it was nothing. Verse 17. The height of the one pillar was 18 cubits, and the chapiter upon it was brass. And the height of the chapiter 3 cubits, and the wreathen work and pomegranates upon the chapiter round about, all of brass. And like unto these had the second pillar with wreathen work. And the captain of the guard took Sariah the chief priest, and Zephaniah the second priest, and the 3 keepers of the door. And out of the city he took an officer that was set over the men of war, and 5 men of them that were in the king's presence, which were found in the city, and the principal scribe of the host, which mustered the people of the land, and 80 men of the people of the land that were found in the city. And Nebuzaradan, captain of the guard, took these and brought them to the king of Babylon to Riblah. And the king of Babylon smote them and slew them at Riblah in the land of Hamath. So Judah was carried away out of their land. And as for the people that remained in the land of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon had left, even over them he made Gedaliah the son of Ahikam, the son of Shaphan, ruler. And when all the captains of armies, they and their men, heard that the king of Babylon had made Gedaliah governor, there came to Gedaliah to Mizpah even Ishmael, the son of Nethaniah, and Jehonan, the son of Kareah, and Sariah, the son of Tehumeth, the Netophathite, and Jaazaniah, the son of Maachathite, the son of a Maachathite, they and their men. And Gedaliah sware to them and to their men, and said unto them, Fear not to be the servants of the Chaldees, dwell in the land, and serve the king of Babylon, and it shall be well with you. So I'm going to read that again. And Gedaliah sware to them and to their men, and said unto them, Fear not to be the servants of the Chaldees, dwell in the land, and serve the king of Babylon, and it shall be well with you. But it came to pass in the 7th month that Ishmael, the son of Nethaniah, the son of Elishama of the seed royal, came, and 10 men with him, and smote Gedaliah that he died, and the Jews and the Chaldees that were with him at Mizpah. And all the people, both small and great, and the captains of the armies arose and came to Egypt, for they were afraid of the Chaldees. And it came to pass in the 7th and 30th year of the captivity of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, in the 12th month, on the 27th day of the month, that evil Merodach, king of Babylon, in the year that he began to reign, did lift up the head of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, out of prison. And he spake kindly to him, and set his throne above the throne of kings that were with him in Babylon, and changed his prison garments. And he did eat bread continually before him all the days of his life. And his allowance was a continual allowance given him of the king, a daily rate for every day, all the days of his life. So Jerusalem, the southern kingdom, was taken down by Babylon. Like we read that they would receive the line of Samaria. They received the same judgment as Samaria, where the city was, what a name. They received the same judgment as the northern kingdom, meaning you had heathens that came in, ransacked the city. They tore down the king's house. They started to steal all the gold, the silver, the brass, all of the tools that were needed for the Levitical priests. They took all of that away, and they carried them away into Babylon. The only people you had left in Jerusalem, it was just the poorest of our people. Babylon left certain of our people in the land, in Jerusalem, but the vast majority of us were taken into Babylon. Brothers like Ezekiel, Jeremiah was in Babylon, um, and certain others. Daniel was in Babylon. The 3 Hebrew boys were captives in Babylon specifically. Judith, was she? Oh no, was she? I think she was still in Jerusalem. I can't remember, but she was during the time of the reign of Babylon. During the reign of Babylon, she was a couple of years after. Let's see, I know it was a couple of years after Nebuchadnezzar did what he did. 2 Kings 25:1. And it came to pass in the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th month, in the 10th day of the month, that Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came, he and all his hosts, against Jerusalem, and pitched against it, and they built forts against it round about. And then we read Judith 1:1. In the 12th year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, who reigned in Nineveh, the great city, in the days of Arphaxad, which reigned over the Medes in Ecbatane. So Judith was around just a couple of years after King Nebuchadnezzar originally came in and started to tear down Jerusalem. So in the 12th year. Yep. Yep. So next week I'm contemplating on either just going over some basic history of Babylon. I may just end up doing both. I may just do one day, one lesson of just some basic things of Babylon, and then hopping right into Chronicles. because Chronicles gives you specific details that you don't get in Kings. I started to go back and forth, but it would have taken too long to finish Kings. So I just decided to finish Kings first. Well, and that, and with the help of Bishop Kanai, when we talked about it, we finished Kings, and so now we'll go through Chronicles. I'll do some basic history on Babylon, since that's who we're ending with, and then we can hop into Chronicles. All right. Yeah. So read up on, use your, use the tools that you got. Of course, this is a good one, the Bible Atlas. Use your who's who in the Bible, just to get some basic timelines with Babylon. And then, like I say, next week, Lord's will, we'll go over some brief history of Babylon. And then that'll kind of give y'all some insight on, the timeline. All right. And then we'll look at some of the prophets and see, where they were at and kind of the conditions of Babylon, so on and so forth. We'll do it like that. All right. Anyway, any questions, anything like that? Hey, shalom, Antonio. All praises, Sister Robin. Okay. Yeah. Who's Who in the Bible is a book. It's by who's the author? Joan Comey. Joan Comey. Sorry for the glare. Hold on. Who's Who in the Bible? Yes, it's an actual book. It's a thick book. It goes into everybody in the Bible, all of the all those names. Spell the last name Coma. Coma. It goes into all the different names that you read about in the Bible. You'll be able to go to the who's who, and it gives you history on those. No problem. It gives you history on all the different names that you read about. Like when we were talking about like with Josiah, it gives you a better insight on the Passover. It's like it lets you know that it was the biggest, and they would sacrifice all these lambs and all the so on and so forth. So it gives you a lot of good history. It also, the reason it's so thick is because it also has the Apocrypha in it. It doesn't have the Apocrypha in it, but it has the all of the figures in the history of the Apocrypha. So Judith, Baruch, it has all those brothers. Yeah, because it didn't have. Yeah, because after Josiah, well, it was prophesied. Because remember, even before Josiah, it was already prophesied. The Most High said, "I'm gonna spare Hezekiah, but after them and after Josiah, Israel, y'all done. Y'all done." Most High still jacked us up, like you said. But in no, Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, the Northern Kingdom captivity came prior to. That starts around like 2 Kings 15, 2 Kings 16. That's prior to Babylon. Because you had the Assyrians that took the Northern Kingdom into captivity. And then you had Babylon that took the Southern Kingdom into captivity. Now, we was jacked up. Now, Assyria jacked up the Southern Kingdom, as well as the Philistines and the Edomites at that time. But as far as leading us in captivity, that was Babylon. Yeah. It was just captivity after captivity after captivity. Like we never That's why when it says, is Israel a homeborn slave? Because we've just been born generation after generation into captivity. That's what that's talking about. Israel a homeborn slave. All right, cool. So so like I say, those are just some of the tools that y'all should use for your studies. And Lord's will, we'll get some um, history and some facts on Babylon, and then we can transition into Kings, or we may continue with Babylon. I don't know. I ain't figured it out yet. But the Lord will put the Spirit on me one way or the other to deal with it. If it be the Lord's will, if He spare my life. So I'm gonna hang it up. Lord's will. See y'all back next week. Or I may have Lord's will next week. Lord's will next week. All right. Shalom, Sister Eliora. Nah, you definitely won't. If you do, you ain't gonna get no understanding from it. All right, Lord's will. We'll see y'all back next week. Hey, all praise to the Most High. All praise to the Most High. I don't labor for myself only, but for all those that seek learning. So, my sacrifice, I'm a living sacrifice. So, all praise to the Most High for that. All right. Lord's will. See y'all back next week. Shalom.